Okie doke. Hello, everybody. Hi, I'm Tom. If it's your first time, today is Thursday Outreach. It is the 4th of June today, so welcome to a new month. Hope you're all well. As always, just going to give it just 5 minutes before start with a proper lesson. Today we're going to be going over some food vocabulary and just another little pronunciation tip at the end. Yeah, as ever, if you're watching this on the video, if you want to skip forward 5 minutes, then you'll miss the boring bit of me just hopefully waiting for a couple more people to tune in at the start. But so yeah, if you skip forward 5 minutes, but if you're watching the stream, I will just wait for a couple more people to join in. Like I say, hope you're all well. Hope you're having a nice week. Wonder what the weather's like for you guys. It's got a bit more grim here. I mean, it's not raining just at the moment, but it has been raining early today, and it was certainly very grey. So it's a bit different to what I've been talking about the past couple of weeks with summertime vocabulary and all different words for that. Certainly won't be necessarily needing them for the weather as it is at the moment. So but anyway, still, even with the weather as it is, I hope you've all had a pleasant week. Don't know if you're looking forward to the weekend or whatever. Yeah, hope you're all doing well. Like I say, today we're going to be going over some words to do with food and cooking. We've been stuck in all the time recently. It's something that's certainly been on my mind an awful lot. Think about what we're going to be cooking for dinner, what meal's going to have. So I thought today that'd be something that might be useful for you guys. Yeah, just all sorts of vocabulary to do with that. As always, the kind of theme of the lesson is to try and take your English sort of up to the next level. So as with last week, I've got a bit of a pronunciation help at the end for if you're more advanced. But even if you're a bit more advanced, or if you're a beginner or whatever, it's worth sticking through the lesson. Because I'm going to, hopefully you'll be able to learn a bit of new vocabulary or something from it. So yeah, cooking and food. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you're watching this on the video, or if you tune in later for the stream, then don't know if you want to be thinking about what your favourite types of food are, what kind of food is traditional from where you come from. If you want to put it in the YouTube comments in the video after, or in the live chat if you're watching on the live stream, I'd be really interested to know what some of your favourite foods are. What's some of my favourite foods? My email's just popped up. Hopefully the stream should be working slightly more smoothly today. It's looking a bit more promising from the stream itself. I know I've had a bit of problem Wi-Fi over the past couple of weeks, but I think it's actually been hopefully fixed now. So that's why I've sort of tried to do another live stream today instead of just uploading a video. As I say this, it looks like everything's sort of maybe going a bit to pot. Hopefully it'll still work. And I tried to have a bit of a look at the video from last week, and it looked sort of fine. So hopefully, I mean, it's working for you all. Again, if you've got any comments, or if it's not working, do put it in the comments, because I do check back on all the comments before each video. So just to see if you've got any feedback or anything, and I'd love to hear back from you about if you've got any suggestions about these lessons. Anyway, it was getting sort of probably about 5 minutes in now, are we? Can I tell? Oh yeah, 4 minutes there. All right, I'll just give it another 30 seconds there before I got started with the lesson, in case anyone's skipped forward from the video, because I don't want anyone to miss anything. So yeah, favourite food. What's some of my favourite foods? Quite simple. I like a sort of bog standard. Pizza, pasta's always tasty. Like a Mexican food, like a nice curry. I think my favourite type of curry might be like a boona. Don't know. But yeah, very partial to curry. Chinese food I like as well. I'm a very easy man to please in terms of food and cooking. So, but yeah, I mean, if you're watching this on the YouTube video and you'd like to comment any of your favourite foods from back in your countries, what food traditional or what's your favourite type of food, then I'd love to hear about it. Anyway, I think we're about 5 minutes in now, so I'll get started with the lesson. So what I've got started with today, I've got a few pictures of like cooking utensils, tools, another word for tools, that you often find in the kitchen, that you'd often find for cooking, and yeah, just gonna go to, so hopefully teach you some new words that you can use in the kitchen, or if you're talking about food. I've taken a lot of this lesson from a website called Lingua House. I think it's linguahouse, .com or something like that. If you want to find linguahouse.com, cooking and eating. So if you want to find the worksheet that I've based this lesson on, struggling a bit to think of what to do for this week, but this lesson seems great. If you want to find the worksheet that it's based on, then you can find it at linguahouse.com. I'll type it into the. I'll put a link to the to the place I found it from. Because I mean, they're a really great website. Like I say, I was a bit stuck on what to do today, but since I've been thinking about food and cooking so much recently, I thought this would be a good idea to go on. So, on to the kitchen and cooking utensils. So, as ever, I've got a little slide up in top, wherever it is. Can't, that way. As you can, of course, see. Don't know why I felt the need to point to it there. So, the first one started off pretty easy, pretty basic one. That is, of course, a knife. Okay, so used to chop things. We're going to be getting onto some of the verbs later that you might use in the kitchen, with all these different utensils, with these different tools. Oh, it's worked, I see. All these different tools that you find in the kitchen. Sorry, lost my train of thought there. Busy bloody watching myself. So yeah, we were going over some of the verbs that you do with these tools in just sort of a bit later, but some chopping, slicing, all sorts of things. So chopping and slicing are things that you do with one of these, which is a knife. In particular, you might call one of these a kitchen knife, which tend to be a bit sort of sharper and bigger as opposed to like a table knife, which is one that you just sort of eat your dinner with instead of preparing the food. So knife is the general idea for that. Okay, like obviously you've got forks as well, which is the other thing you use to eat food. Okay, so next one, this one, you'd call this one a frying pan. There's all sorts of different types of pan. I'm going to get a couple more of those a bit later on as we go through, but this one in particular is a frying pan. It looks like a non-stick pan, which is obviously one that doesn't stick in. So as we get into the verbs later, you'll find out that frying is something that you do in the kitchen as well. So that is a frying pan. The next one here that we've got is a roasting tin, called. You get a lot of different types of these. I think we've at home got like a stoneware dish, which is quite similar. It's a similar sort of shape, but it's made of sort of pot instead of metal. But either way, I suppose you call it a roasting tin, and you might do a roast dinner or roast vegetables or all sorts of things in that. Again, roasting is a verb that we're going to get onto a little bit later, but that is a roasting tin. Okie doke. Now this one, another pan. This one's a saucepan. Saucepan. Yeah, this one's something used to make sauces in. Used to make a pasta sauce. Might use to heat up some soup. A smaller version of this tends to be non-stick. You might call that a milk pan. But this sort of bigger version, usually with a lid, you'd call a saucepan. Okie doke. And then here, there's a few different things to point out with this one. Just see if we've got. This one is, like I said, there's a few different things to point out with this one. So the sort of two lit up sections that you might, I don't know why I'm trying to point, I've got no coordination. The two sort of lit up sections that you can see, you'd probably call those ovens. And that's something where, you heat up to a certain temperature and then you put your stuff in and it cooks it sort of through. What I imagine is the thing on the top left, as if you're sort of facing the thing, is a grill, I imagine. So what you do with a grill is you open up the grill and it sort of heats stuff from the top down. So if you're making something like cheese on toast is the only example that I can think of just at the moment, and it cooks stuff from the top down. So instead of like an oven where you'd cook it through, a grill, you open it up and leave the door open so the air can sort of circulate, and you cook stuff from the top down. So if you wanted to, like I say, with cheese on toast, melt some cheese on top of your toast, then that's what you use. On the very top, the top surface, the stuff that you put your pans on, that might make a flame, or they might be electric, you'd call that a stovetop or a hob. I'd probably call it a hob, but there's different words. The word on the lesson that I'm basing this on is they've used is stovetop. I think a stove, but I think I would call it a hob. I don't know if one's just if that's where I'm from or if that's an English, UK English thing. Whatever, I'm not necessarily sure, but a stove or a hob, either of those will work. So on there, yeah, all sorts of different things. You've got the hob on the top, you've got the grill on the top left, where you open it up and you cook things from the top, and you've got the two ovens there, which cook things through. And on to the next slide. So here we've got some various different types of spoons. Now, again, it's not something that you necessarily need to know. The kind of point on the worksheet that I'm basing it on, they just had tablespoon, which is, I would say, the second biggest one. But I thought it was also important to include the smallest one, which is a teaspoon. So if you're making a cup of tea or a coffee or something, then that's, or yogurt or something, I don't know, then you'd probably use a teaspoon with that. The two other ones, so going from largest to smallest, I'd probably call that a serving spoon, the largest one. Different sort of names for it. Again, this is not necessarily something that's going to need to know, but just so you're aware. So if someone says, get the serving spoon, then it's probably the biggest spoon you can find in the drawer. The second largest one is a tablespoon. So if you're having a bowl of soup, or there is a specific type of soup spoon as well, but generally speaking, tablespoon is kind of your all multifunction spoon for that kind of thing. The next one down is a dessert spoon. Yeah, not really that different from a tablespoon, but again, it doesn't really matter. And then you've got the teaspoon, but the two main ones are the tablespoon and a teaspoon. Tablespoon being the bigger and a teaspoon being the smaller of the two. So they're the two main ones you really need to know, other than big sort of ladles, for example, which is almost like a sort of mini bowl shaped spoon with a big handle, and that you might sort of serve different types of food up with that. But they're spoons. Okay, so spoons, forks, knives, the main thing. Now this is another sort of type of pan, often used in sort of more Chinese stuff, whatever. I think that's where it's from. It's called a wok. And it's a big round sort of pan type thing with it's sort of round. That one I see has got a flat bottom, but I'm not sure if traditionally they've got a round bottom, but I'm not sure. So that's a wok, used to make sort of stir fries, more Chinese type food. Lovely, great piece of cooking equipment. Now the next one is of course, a chopping board. Now, as we get onto the verbs again later, we'll maybe go back to this one. That's something you'd put on your sort of surface to stop it getting spoiled, and that's where you chop your different types of food on. So just I think that's the last one. Yeah. So going back through them. So starting off, we've got a knife. We've got a frying pan, a roasting tin, a saucepan, an oven, hob and grill, and various types of spoons. So the bigger being tablespoon and smaller being teaspoon, and a wok and a chopping board. Okie doke. Now, okie doke. So we're getting on to some of the verbs here. So I've got a little bit of a challenge after to try and fill in the gaps in a couple of recipes. Again, this is taken from the Lingua House website, but these are the verbs that will be going into that one, and these are all actions that you tend to do, in the kitchen. Okie doke. So starting off, probably doing this in a roasting tin, of course. Roast. I hope that's big enough. I don't think anyone's watching. No. I think that should be big enough. Like I say, if you follow that link and try and download one of the worksheets, then you should be able to see it slightly more clearly. Hopefully it's big enough. Okay, so the first one there, roast. So to cook food, e.g. meat or potatoes in an oven using oil or added fat. So big thing in the UK. I don't know if you will have tried it, or if not, it's lovely. Is a roast dinner. Where you get all sorts of things that are roasted. The centre of it's usually type of meat, so roast chicken or something, or beef, pork, whatever. And then you'll get all sorts of lovely bits with it. Yorkshire puddings, which not a pudding like you might think of as being sweet. It's a sort of don't know. It's made with batter, and it's just lovely. Have gravy, which is like it's made with the juice of the meat or bist or whatever, and then it's like a meaty sort of sauce that goes, hot sauce that Alan Partridge quite it's a hot sauce. It goes over it, and you get roast potatoes as well. So again, the roast potatoes and the roast, beef, for example, you put in a roasting tin and you cook for ages in an oven with the extra fat. Okie doke. So fry onto the next one. To cook food in hot oil or butter over a heat source. So first example I can think of with this is a fried egg. So that's something you do in a frying pan. As we go back to from before. Where are we? Frying pan. Frying pan is something that you could cook a fried egg in. So what you do, you put some sort of oil in the pan, quite high, and then just crack an egg into it, and then fry the egg. So frying is doing in a pan like this, cooking it on the hob over heat. You can also fry stuff in a wok. Where are we? There we are. You can also fry stuff in a wok. But yeah, fried, cook in hot oil or butter over a heat source. So yeah, that's what you do there. Don't know if you ever had a fried egg. Another classic sort of English type of food, very tasty, is an English breakfast or a cooked breakfast, or whatever you want to call it, where you get all sorts of different fried food. So traditionally you get bacon and sausages and mushrooms and fried tomatoes, and even fried bread. Here we put oil and put all the stuff. When I ate meat, I just if I was going to make a cooked breakfast, I'd just get a big pan, loads of oil in it, and just stick everything in one pan, and fry it on the hob. Okie doke. So boil, to cook food in boiling water. So that is if you're making a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, then you'll put water in the kettle to boil, and that's where you heat up water to to about sort of 100 degrees. And when you boil something, so you can usually boil veg, you get boiled carrots, boiled potatoes, whatever, then that's when you put them in boiling water, as the name suggests. Add, so I'm sure you're already familiar with that one. So that's just when you put something in with something else. So that doesn't even just necessarily apply to cooking, that can apply to all sorts of different things. So you can add, add some tomatoes to the sauce or whatever for a cooking example, or add some extra salt or something like that. So add, okay, that's one I'm hopefully already familiar with, but if not, then yeah, it's when you put something with something else. Peel, a tricky one. So that's remove the skin from a fruit or a vegetable. So yeah, just as it says, remove the skin. So you could do this, probably the easiest example is with a banana, where you just get, the banana and then you just peel off the skin, but you could also peel a potato with a peeler, apple, anything, if you're just taking the skin off like it says. Chop. So this is something that you would use the knife and a chopping board for, and it's where you cut food into small pieces. Okay, so with potatoes or anything, it's where you get your knife and you, like it says, cut the food into smaller pieces. I don't know why I feel like I need to explain that any more than it says there. I think it's very clear. So chop. Preheat a cooker or oven. I don't know what it says cooker there. It's a bit more sort of colloquial. Oven, I would say, is probably the proper word. To heat an oven to a certain temperature before putting food inside. So yeah, that's very important when you're cooking. If you see on the instructions on the back of like a ready meal or something, and it says to cook for 20 minutes at 200 degrees, then you don't just stick the food in and turn on the oven. You've got to preheat the oven, which means that before you put the food in, you need to get it up to the temperature that you're going to cook it at. So you'd maybe, 10 minutes before you put the food in, if it's 200 degrees, you turn it up to 200 degrees and let the oven get up to that certain temperature, which is really important so stuff's not undercooked or, whatever. Serve, to provide food that is ready to eat. So, yeah, so if you're, having a dinner party or whatever, or even if you just got, cooking for yourself, then it's when you put the food on the plate and bring the plate out to people. So, or if you're in a restaurant, for example, you would serve the food by a waiter would come up to you and put down the food on your table, and that's being served. Okay, stir, to mix a liquid or sauce with an object such as a wooden spoon. Yeah, that's a good point actually. So showed a few different spoons before, the tablespoon and the teaspoon being the main one. They're just sort of metal spoons. You can also get wooden spoons, which are used in cooking, and it's just a big spoon made out of wood. But yeah, if you're stirring something, then you're mixing a liquid or sauce. So if you're making a cup of tea or coffee, for example, I've got here. You put the tea bag in, put the milk in, and then with a little teaspoon, for example, you just stir it round and mix it up. Lovely. Squeeze, that's a good word, isn't it? Squeeze. To press something, e.g. a lemon, with your hands to get the liquid from it. So, exactly. So, if you've got like a lemon or an orange, or you could also use this with like tomato puree or something like that, or toothpaste even, outside the cooking world, which is where you get the packet or the lemon or whatever it is, and and then you like squeeze it down so the stuff comes out of it. Squeeze. That's a good one. And to heat up, make something hot. So you could put it in the oven, put it on the hob, in the grill, whatever. It's just to take something and make it hot. Okey-doke. So just go back over those. I hope they're all clear. Just go back on the stream. Never mind. No feedback. No. Lose my train of thought again. Don't know what's wrong with me today. Can't seem to hold a thought in my head. So just go back over the words quickly, just to make sure you're all familiar with them before going to the next round, as it were. Okay, so roast, to cook food in an oven using oil, probably in a roasting tin. Fry, when you get it on the hob, in a pan, cook it up, oil, heat, lovely, cook food in hot oil or butter over a heat source. Boil, cook food in boiling water, add, put something in with something else, very common one, again, not just in cooking. Peel, to remove the skin from a fruit, if I can speak, or vegetable, like with a banana or potato. Chop, cut stuff into smaller pieces. Preheat, heat an oven to a certain temperature before putting the food inside. Serve, provide food that is ready to eat. Stir, tea or sauce or gravy, going back to the roast dinner example, or beans, going back to the cooked breakfast example. Stir, squeeze. That's the action you can maybe use to think of squeeze, with a toothpaste tube or a lemon or anything like that, where you press something with your hand to get the liquid from it, or heat up to make something hot. Okie doke. So the next sort of challenge I've got for you all, if you're watching this on the video, feel free to put in the comments or get maybe a pad and some paper or something ready to maybe try and fill in the answers. Anyway, so yeah, here we are. Where are we? I'm losing myself. So, got a couple of different recipes. Just move that. I can't see it properly. A couple of different recipes that I hope you can see. Maybe a tiny bit small. Oh no, that's not right. Make it slightly bigger. There we are. If you're watching this on the stream, do feel free to put in the comments if you can't see it properly. Hopefully that should be okay. So this is a recipe for duck with orange and honey sauce. Lovely. Have I done everything that I wanted to? Yeah. Duck with orange and honey sauce. So what they've done at Lingua House, you can have a look at the worksheet if you want. But if not, then here we are. They've taken out the verbs that we've just gone over from the different recipes. Okie doke. So try and keep in mind those the words that we've just gone over before. So roast, fry, boil, add, peel, chop, preheat, serve, stir, squeeze, heat up. Try and keep those in mind as we are going through this. So blank. Sorry, I'll go back over the ingredients. Getting ahead of myself. So I've got one duck. Obviously, you can imagine what a duck is. Little bird you see on the river. Quite small, often used in Chinese cooking. So duck, 4 tablespoons of oil. So tablespoon is the bigger one. 1 carrot, 2 onions, 3 oranges, 2 teaspoons, small one, of honey, parsley, pepper, and salt. Parsley being a herb, that's probably the one out of all those that you maybe not heard. I'm not sure. Feel free to Google any of those ingredients. You can always pause the video or whatever if I'm not going over it clearly enough. So I'll just read through the recipe now, and then we can maybe have a think about what verbs might go into it. So blank the oven to 190 degrees Celsius. Firstly, blank the carrot into small pieces. That's a clue there, the small pieces. And blank the onion. Blank the oil in a pan and blank the vegetables for about 10 minutes. When they're ready, place them with the duck in a roasting tin and put them in the oven. Blank the duck for about 1 hour and 15 minutes. Next, blank the juice from the oranges and mix it with the honey. When the duck is ready, place it on a serving plate and decorate with parsley. Sounds very tasty. So what do we think each of those verbs might be? So should we go through them one by one? So blank the oven to 190 degrees. Now I think that should be based on the verbs. Pretty obvious one. I'll give you a second to think about it. I would say that one would be preheat. Okay, like I say, it's getting the oven up to a certain temperature before you put stuff in. Firstly, the carrot into small pieces. Now, do you remember I said about this? It says into small pieces. What do? You might use a chopping board to chop, cut food into small pieces. And what would you do with the other onion? Now, if you can think about an onion that you get from the shop, then it's got the skin around it. Now, can you remember what the word was for taking the skin off something? That word was, of course, peel. Okay, go back to it there. Remove the skin from a fruit or a vegetable. Where are we? So blank the oil in the pan and blank the vegetables for about 10 minutes. So I would say those ones are. So going back to the verb, blank the oil in the pan and blank the vegetables for about 10 minutes. Going back, so I would say that you would heat up the oil in the pan, heat up, make the oil hot, and you would fry the vegetables because you're cooking them in the hot oil. Okay, so going over to the next one. When they're ready, place them with the duck in a roasting tin and put them in the oven. Okay, so what do you think you might do to these things when they're in the roasting tin in the oven? Should be clear from roasting tin. Roasting tin, you roast them, of course. Okie doke. So you cook food in an oven using oil or added fat. Jolly good. Next. Now, remember the toothpaste example. Which verb do you think might go there? I would say squeeze. You're squeezing the juice from the oranges and mixing it with the honey. Sounds like a very tasty recipe. Okie doke. So going back over that, I would say you would preheat the oven to 190 degrees. Firstly, chop the carrot into small pieces and peel the onion. Heat up the oil in the pan and fry the vegetables for about 10 minutes. When they're ready, place them with the duck in a roasting tin and put in the oven. Roast the duck for about an hour and 15 minutes, and then squeeze the juice from the oranges and mix it in with the honey. Lovely. Okie doke. Okie doke. So now I've got another one of these. Hope that was useful. I hope you enjoyed that because I've got spaghetti with marinara sauce up next. That sounds a bit, a bit different. Okie doke. So I think marinara sauce is like a tomato sauce. I guess we'll see. So the ingredients: 250 grams of spaghetti, just like that long pasta. 2 tablespoons of olive oil, 1.5 cans of chopped tomatoes, chopped garlic and onion, parsley, pepper and salt. So in a large saucepan, the onion and garlic in the olive oil for a few minutes. The chopped tomatoes, salt, pepper and parsley into the saucepan with a wooden spoon. Cook on a low heat for about 30 minutes. In a large pan, the pasta, according to the instructions on the packet, mix the pasta with the sauce and warm. Okie doke. So going back over that one, covering my face. So in a large saucepan, what do you think you would do to the onion and garlic? My example earlier was something you might do with an egg, and you might do it in a frying pan, which might be the dead giveaway. You would fry the onion and the garlic in the olive oil for a few minutes. Next, okie doke, so you would add the chopped tomato, salt, and pepper and parsley into the saucepan and stir with a wooden spoon. Cook on a low heat for about half an hour, 30 minutes, in a large pan. Now this is the one that you do with hot water, if you can remember. What do you do when you take water up to about 100 degrees? That's called boiling the water. So you boil the pasta according to the instructions on the packet, mix the pasta with the sauce and serve warm. Okie doke. So I hope that was useful. What have we got next? Now we're on to the most fun bit, I think, of the lesson for me. Now these are all different adjectives that you could use to describe different types of sort of flavour, different sort of types of food that you commonly find. So now the adjectives are bitter, bland, greasy, rich, salty, sour, spicy and sweet. Okay, now I'll go for a brief sort of idea of what each of these words mean, and then we can maybe have a think about which of each of the food and drinks might be associated with each word. Okay, so the first one, bitter. That's quite a tricky one. Well, I'll use that as the example actually, because bitter is quite a difficult flavour to describe. So I think that would be go with the espresso coffee. So that's the first picture that you see. That one there. Then pointing to my pen. Bitter coffee. It's a sort of kind of a sharp flavour, I suppose. But I suppose that's just one that you maybe know. Coffees often can be bitter, especially when it's not that nice. I think not nice coffee could be quite sweet. Okay, bland is the next one. So that bland refers to something that's not necessarily got much flavour. So if you haven't put enough herbs, spices, or salt and pepper into a dish that you're cooking, then someone who's a bit rude might say that it was bland. Okay, not good enough flavour. If you want, while I'm going through the descriptions, you can maybe have a look over at each of the different foods. The one on the third one in from the right between the cake and the lemons, I think they look like sort of pretzels, which is a kind of salty snack that you often get in America, in the States. I suppose for that you can maybe replace that one with crisps. For here in the UK. Okie doke. So bland, not that much flavour. Greasy. Now that's something you might use to describe something that's sort of it sort of coats your mouth with a kind of oiliness from the cooking. Greasy, like lots of grease on it. So that's not necessarily a good thing to describe food. As rich, that's something, it's the opposite of bland. You might say that it's got a lot of flavour. So you could say that something with a lot of flavour is rich. Okay, so salty. I think I've already probably spoiled that one by saying that the pretzels are salty, but it's just something with a lot of salt on it. Probably too much salt. You would say that for sour, which is I don't know if you've ever had Haribo's Tangfastic sweets or seen the advert, but on the advert it's these sort of sour sweets, and it makes them go, it makes them pull a face, because it's as an expression that some people say in Yorkshire, it makes your ears laugh, because you go like, oh, it's very sort of where you scrunch up your eyes and go funny. It's sour. That's sour. Spicy is if you've got really hot curry chili flavours, then that'd be spicy. And sweet is like sweets, sort of nice fruit, sugary, lovely. Okay, so we've done bitter, saying coffee, so bland, something without much flavour. I would probably say that one, I'll give you a second to think about it, but probably just the plain slice of bread, not got that much flavour on their own, but obviously you could say something that's bland, got potential to carry other flavours, so like bread you could have with a sandwich with lots of lovely cheese or, or anything really, jam, yum. Greasy. Now that one I think is probably describing those burgers, full of grease, not necessarily the most healthy thing for you, but very tasty, I'm sure, nonetheless. Next one along, we've got rich. That is probably most often used to describe chocolate cake, actually. Absolutely so much flavour that you wouldn't want to eat a lot of it. You just have sort of just a taste, really. Salty, again, the pretzels or crisps or just something with a lot of salt. Sour, something that makes you go like that, which would probably in this case be the lemons. Spicy is that lovely hot curry, lots of chili pepper flavour, and sweet is the honey, that sort of sugary flavour. Okay, look, haven't got more for that. Yeah, so got some more vocab there. If you're watching the video, then maybe just pause it and have a ponder over it. I'm just going to actually go through the answers with this one because I've got something that I'd quite like to do in the last 10 minutes. So, last week I did a bit of a pronunciation thing in the last 10 minutes, and I think that's something to mix it up a bit. So I'll just, if you're watching the video, pause it now and have a think about what answers might go in there. But I'm just going to go through it briefly and give you the answers so I can skip on to the last thing that I want to cover. So burn is something where you cook it too much, and it, like if you leave something in the oven for ages and it goes black, then that's when you burnt it. Delicious is something that's really tasty, really yummy, just lovely. Diet, probably mostly referring to if someone goes on a diet to lose weight, but actually everyone has, your diet is just what you eat. So yeah, fresh is something probably most often describing like vegetables or pastries or whatever. It's just really new. If it's a vegetable, it's just come out the ground or whatever, and it's just that fresh, delicious, natural kind of flavour. Fresh out of the oven, you could say, because it's just come out of the oven. It's new. It's lovely. Mediums, or that goes again with the next one down. Well done. So if you're ordering a steak in a restaurant, then they'll ask you, how would you like it cooked? Medium is medium. Well done is more cooked. You could say you want it rare, which is the other side, and you can also have mix and match between the two of them. So you could say you could have rare, you could have medium rare, you could have medium, you could have medium well, and you can have well done. Or indeed in France, you could ask for your steak blue, which is just like not cooked at all. Really, it's just a bit on both sides, just and then that's it. Not necessarily for everyone, but so you're aware. Raw is basically blue, so a blue steak. So it's if it's not cooked at all, then it's raw. Set. So if you're making jelly, for example, then you need to leave it to set. So it's where you leave it to harden basically into its final thing. Tender. So if you've got a really nice piece of meat, usually, then it's kind of soft, breaks apart in the mouth. You could say it's tender. Vegetarian, which means that you don't eat sort of animal meat, like stuff from like the flesh of like living things. So don't eat meat or fish, or if you're vegan, then you don't eat anything that comes from an animal. So like eggs and milk and all that kind of thing. But vegetarian means that you don't eat the like flesh, basically, so meat or fish. Done, well done. So just go through the answers here. I cooked the carrots for 20 minutes, but they're still raw, not cooked. These apples are very fresh. I picked them this morning. Like I say, it's just new. Carol never orders meat at restaurants. She is vegetarian. This meat is really tender. It's very easy to cut. This soup is delicious. You must give me the recipe. No more cake for me. I'm on a diet. We're expecting a lot of guests tonight, so you must set the table for 10 people. Sorry, I've given you the wrong definition of set earlier. So if you're to set the table, then it means you put all the cutlery, knives and forks, and placemats and stuff out. So set the table. If you cook the chicken for too long, you will burn it. I like my steak medium rare. It should be slightly pink in the middle. John likes his steak completely cooked in the middle. It should be well done. Okie doke. So that's the last of that. Just put that away. The last thing I've got for you all today. Last week, if you were watching, you might remember that I talked a little bit about this sound in English called God, it's gone out of my mind. Anyway, sorry, mind blank. Anyway, and it was I talked a little bit about this sort of idea of different word stresses. So if you want to sound natural when you're speaking English, then you've got to be aware of the fact that different words and letters have different stress put on them. So some words in a sentence are more important than others. So I thought today, just in the last sort of 10 minutes, I would go back into that idea of word stress and just give you a little bit more information about that. If you want more of these little last minute 10-minute sections to be going on about pronunciation, then do let me know in the comments. I mean, I think it's helpful, but obviously if I'm completely wrong, then do just tell me to stop, and I will. Obviously these are for you guys, so whatever you want, I will do. But hopefully this is useful for a lot of you. So word stress. So like I say, it's really important for you to be aware of this idea that in English, different words in a sentence have different amounts of importance. So if you want to be properly understood by people, and if you're going to be able to use all this great vocabulary that you've been learning from my lessons and other people's lessons and all your other learning, then you need to be aware of the fact that different words have different importance in English in a sentence. So stressing the wrong syllable in a word or the wrong word in a sentence, putting the focus on the wrong thing, can actually make it very difficult to understand or to be understood. And also different sounding words, putting the different pronunciation on different words and in different places in the word, different syllables in the word, can make it have completely different meanings. So you can break a word down into its core sounds, okay? Diction. No, that's a bad example because you can say it differently. I can't necessarily think of what's the example? So I'll go through the examples after, but it's the different sounds in a word, and they're called phonemes, I think. And each of those can't be separated any further, so they're each individual sound in a word. And if you're going to put, stress on the most important syllable in each of these words or on each of the syllables. So when you stress a word, when you focus more on a word or a syllable, then you might do a few things to it. So if it's a syllable, if it's one of the sounds in a word, then you might make it longer, louder, change the pitch, say it more clearly, and use larger facial movements. So the example here is computer. Now, if you listen carefully, then you might try and be able to realise what sound in that word has the most importance. Computer. Computer. So the second syllable, computer, is the one that's stressed there. You. Computer. Computer. Okay, so computer is longer, computer is louder, has a change in pitch, goes a bit more high pitch. Computer, said more clearly and uses larger facial movements. So say computer. Okay, so hopefully that's done my point. That's something actually you can use. I'm going to introduce a bit later, but actually we're running a bit short on time, so I'll introduce it now. One thing that's really great, I'm sure you're all aware of, absolutely brilliant, is Cambridge Learner's Dictionary. I'll put a link to that in the chat as well. Yeah, really brilliant. What you can do with that is, if you've got a word that you don't necessarily know how to say properly, then it'll speak it out for you, and it'll say, you can try and work out where the stress is in the word. And one thing you can do is to try and pronounce it in different ways and work out which way you think sounds most natural. So there are some general sort of tendencies of where the stress goes in different types of words. So in 2-syllable nouns and adjectives, such as table, apple, and happy, the stress goes on usually the first syllable. So apple, table, and happy. How weird would it sound if you did apple, table, and happy? It just sounds wrong. So usually on 2-syllable nouns and adjectives, the stress goes on the first syllable. Words that can be used both as nouns and verbs, such as suspect or suspect, import or import or import, or insult or insult. You see, it's very, very tricky, even for me, been speaking English all my life, to try and recognise some of the differences. In the noun word, then the syllable usually is stressed, the first one. So suspect, import or insult, when it's in its verb form, then it usually goes on the second syllable. So I suspect you. I import chocolates. I insult. Okay, and then in compound nouns such as hair, brush, or football, there's a slightly stronger stress on the first syllable there. So football, hairbrush. You wouldn't say football or hairbrush. Say hairbrush or football. Now it's really tricky, but it's something that's just you don't necessarily need to memorise those rules, but it's just something to really be aware of. Is how important the different stresses on your words or in different parts of words will make you be understood by people. Because if you're not feeling like you're being understood properly, then it might be because of this idea of word stress in different words. Where are we? Now this does all depend on accent and the different sort of varieties of English. So it's not, there are, sure, that was the sound I was thinking of from last week. Anyway, sorry. In the different varieties of English, there are different sounds that might get emphasised. So in US English, they say Caribbean, whereas over here we say Caribbean. So that's kind of the difference there. But again, something you could use the learner dictionaries for. Now, what I'm trying to say here, I feel like I didn't give myself enough time. I ran on a bit long with the food stuff, then kind of hope I maybe have to give myself a bit more time next week. But what I kind of want you to be aware of is just how different words can sound if you emphasize different sounds within them or different words in the sentences. It's really something that's important to be aware of. It might be something that I do a bit more of a full lesson on next week. If you're watching again on the YouTube video, then do please leave a comment if you'd be interested in me doing a bit more of a full lesson on this idea of word stress and pronunciation, because I feel like I didn't quite give myself enough time to do it properly. If you'd be interested, then do let me know. But like I say, if you're ever stuck with words, if you ever find a new word, then just try saying it a few different times. What sounds natural, and then maybe if you could go up to a native English speaker, then help go over that. But don't be afraid to get it wrong, because it's very complex. It's very tricky. Yeah, so I'll probably leave it there for this week. Like I say, if you do want me to go over this idea of word stress a bit more next week, then leave a comment. I might do it sort of anyway. But I hope you've enjoyed this week. I hope you do some lovely cooking in this coming week. Anything about word stress, anything about English, and just have a nice week. I'll be back again same time next week, so tune in or watch the video or whatever. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Have a nice week. Bye now.